She was Seraphina the outcast, a white-furred omega, a ghost in her own pack, scorned for the paleness of her wolf and the weakness of her rank. But deep within her she held a secret, a power to heal, a light magic in a dark world. One stormy night, she finds a colossal black wolf, dying by the river, his body shattered by silver and poison. He is a stranger, a beast of immense power, and healing him is a death sentence. But she does it anyway. She has no idea that this single act of mercy has just sealed her fate, and that the wolf she saved is none other than the Alpha King. And at the next full moon, he is coming to claim his healer. The rain fell in cold, relentless sheets, plastering Seraphina's thin tunic to her skin. It was a miserable night, but misery was her closest companion. She was an omega of the Blood Moon pack, and not just any omega. She was the albino, in a world that valued brutal strength and the rich dark coats of predators. Her pale milk-white fur and silver-white hair were a mark of shame. Her eyes, a translucent icy blue, made the other wolves flinch as if her gaze was an omen. She was a ghost, a whisper, and that was exactly how her alpha Gideon preferred her, ignored until he needed someone to blame. Tonight she wasn't hiding from her pack. She was hiding from the storm, crouched under the thick, drooping branches of an ancient willow tree by the Silverflow River. The river marked the border of their territory. She was forbidden from being this close, but it was the only place she could find peace. The storm masked her scent, giving her a precious few hours of invisibility. She was digging for feverfew, her small hands chilled to the bone as she worked the muddy bank. Her friend, a timid omega named Bethany, was sick with a lung-ringing cough, and the pack healer had refused to see her. Seraphina had to steal the herbs herself. A sudden, agonizing howl ripped through the roar of the thunder. It wasn't the howl of a blood moon wolf. This was deeper, a sound of profound power, laced with gut-wrenching pain. Her blood ran cold. A rogue, or worse, a challenger. Her every instinct screamed, run. An omega, especially one like her, would be torn apart just for being a witness. She froze, hidden by the curtain of willow leaves, and then she saw him. He wasn't just a wolf. He was a monster, a demon of shadow and muscle, his fur as black as a starless night. He was easily twice the size of Alpha Gideon, who was the largest wolf she had ever seen. He staggered out of the trees on the opposite bank, his massive body listing. He tried to cross the river, perhaps to mask his scent, but collapsed midway. The rushing water surged around his colossal form, threatening to drag him under. He was dying. Seraphina could smell it even over the rain, the coppery tang of blood, and the acidic burn of wolfsbane cut with the sharp, sickening scent of silver. Someone had set a trap, a powerful one. She should have left. She should have retreated into the shadows and let the river claim him. He was not her problem. He was a threat. But as he raised his head, his one visible eye, a startling, intense silver, seemed to find her. It held no plea, only a burning, defiant rage against the death that was claiming him. Then the light faded, and his head sank back into the churning water. "Moon goddess, forgive me," she whispered. She didn't know why she did it. Perhaps it was because she knew what it felt like to be alone and dying, even if only on the inside. Seraphina plunged into the freezing river. The current was strong, nearly ripping her from her feet. She fought her way to the black wolf, his fur slick and heavy. He was unconscious, a dead weight. She was small and omega with barely any muscle, but desperation gave her a strange, frantic strength. She grabbed a fistful of his mane and pulled. It was like trying to move a mountain. "Wake up!" she shrieked into the storm. "You have to help me." He didn't move. The water was rising. She clawed at the riverbank, her fingers digging into the mud, pulling him inch by agonizing inch out of the water. It took what felt like an eternity. She collapsed on the bank next to him, shivering, gasping, her limbs aching. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds. A deep gash in his side, clotted with mud and black-looking blood, was clearly poisoned. Silver. It was burning him from the inside out. She tore a strip from her tunic and pressed it to the wound. A low, pained rumble vibrated from his chest, even in unconsciousness. I can't leave you here," she stammered, her teeth chattering. "Gideon's patrols will find you. They'll kill you." She knew a small, dry cave hidden behind a cascade of ivy, not far from the willow. It was her secret place. Using the last of her strength, she half-dragged, half-rolled the massive wolf, hiding him in the dark, dry space. Inside, shielded from the wind and rain, she looked at what she had done. She had saved a rogue. If Gideon found out, she would be flayed. The wolf's breathing was shallow. The silver poisoning was spreading. He would be dead by morning. Serafina looked at her hands. Her pack saw them as weak, useless. But they held her secret. She wasn't just an albino. She was a healer. Not a healer of herbs and tonics, but of light. A forbidden magic that her mother had warned her to hide before she died. "They will chain you for this, Serafina." Never show them. This wolf wasn't them. He was a stranger. "Okay," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Okay, just stay still." She placed her pale, trembling hands on the blackened, festering wound. She closed her eyes, shutting out the storm, and drew on the well of power inside her. It was a tiny, warm spark deep in her chest. She pulled it, nurtured it, and let it flow down her arms. A soft, silvery light, visible even in the dark cave, poured from her palms. It was the color of moonlight. The wolf's body seized. A growl of pure agony tore from his throat. The magic was fighting the poison. Black, toxic blood began to steam and sizzle, drawing out of the wound as the silver was neutralized. She felt the searing heat of the poison, the icy chill of the silver, as if it were in her own body. It hurt. She gasped, tears streaming down her face, but she held on. She poured her light into him, stitching flesh, mending torn muscle, pushing back the encroaching death. She felt a connection, a strange resonant pull, as if his life force was a massive dark ocean and her light was a single drop falling into it. She worked for hours, moving from wound to wound until she was panting and dizzy. The spark inside her was drained, leaving her hollow and cold. Finally, the great wolf's breathing evened out. The tension left his muscles. The scent of poison was gone, replaced by the natural, powerful smell of pine storm and something uniquely him, a scent of undisputed authority. She collapsed against the cave wall, her energy spent. She had just saved the most powerful creature she had ever encountered. Before she slipped into exhausted sleep, the wolf stirred. His massive head lifted. He turned, and in the dim light of the cave, his two silver eyes opened and fixed on her. They were no longer dull with pain. They were sharp, intelligent, and shockingly intense. He looked at her, really looked at her, a low sound vibrating in his chest. It wasn't a growl, it was something else. Then his eyes closed, and he fell into a true healing sleep. Serafina, safe, for the first time in her life, slumped beside the warmth of the predator she had saved and slept. When she woke stiff and cold, the morning sun was filtering through the ivy, and the cave was empty. He was gone. There was no sign he had ever been there, save for the patch of dried blood on the cave floor and the faint, lingering scent of pine and lightning. Seraphina returned to the Blood Moon Pack's compound, under the harsh light of morning, her heart a cold stone in her chest. She had slept too long. She'd missed her morning duties, serving the Alpha's breakfast, cleaning the longhouse, and taking the first round of abuse from the pack warriors. She was wrong about the scent being gone. It clung to her. Pine and lightning. She tried to slip into the Omega's den unnoticed, but a large, scarred hand clamped down on her shoulder, spinning her around. "Where have you been, ghost?" It was Damien Alpha Gideon's beta. His eyes a muddy brown, raked over her with disdain. He sniffed the air, his nose wrinkling. "You stink of the river, and something else. A rogue male." Seraphina's blood turned to ice. "No, I fell in. I was gathering herbs for Bethany. The storm." Damien backhanded her. The force of the blow sent her sprawling onto the muddy ground. "Liar. Omegas don't lie to me." He grabbed her by the hair, yanking her to her feet. "Alpha Gideon wants to see you. He's in a rare mood this morning. And now you get to be the focus of it." He dragged her across the compound. The other pack members watched. Some sneered. Most just looked away, relieved it wasn't them. This was her life. Gideon was sitting at the head of the longhouse, a massive, brutish man with a thick red beard and a wolf form to match. He was chewing on a leg of venison, his greasy fingers tearing the meat from the bone. He looked up as Damien threw her at his feet. She was at the River Alpha. Damien reported, his voice dripping with false loyalty. "She stinks of a rogue." Gideon stopped chewing. The air in the longhouse became dangerously still. He tossed the bone aside, and it clattered on the stone floor. He slowly wiped his hands on his tunic. "A rogue, you say?" His voice was a low growl. He stood up, towering over her. "And what would a rogue want with this?" He gestured to Seraphina as if she were a piece of trash. "She's pale, weak, barely a wolf at all." Maybe he just wanted something to break. He crouched down, grabbing her chin and forcing her to look at him. His eyes were cold and dead. "Or maybe you like rogues, Seraphina. Maybe you went looking for one. No Alpha," she whispered, her body trembling so hard she could barely speak. "I swear on the goddess, I was just getting herbs. The storm." "The storm," he mocked. He sniffed her neck, his hot, foul breath washing over her. She flinched. He growled, pleased by her fear. "You reek of male, girl. A strong one." He paused, his eyes narrowing. "You're hiding something." Seraphina's heart hammered against her ribs. She thought of the silver eyes, the scent of pine. He knows. He knows. But Gideon's mind wasn't on her transgression. It was, as always, on his own ambition. He let her go, pushing her away. "It doesn't matter," he scoffed, turning back to his table. "A matter of fact, it's timely. Lord Valerius is arriving in 2 weeks. He's a guest of the highest honor, a cousin of the Alpha King himself." Seraphina's stomach twisted. She'd heard of the Alpha King Alaric, a ruthless, shadowy figure who ruled the entire northern continent from his fortress, the Stonefang Citadel. His name was used to frighten pups. Lord Valerius is looking for opportunities. Gideon continued, a sly, greedy look in his eye. "Alliances. And I aim to give him one. He's traveling with his personal guard, and they will need entertainment." He looked back at Seraphina. A slow, cruel smile spread across his face. "You," he said, "you're strange looking. These high-born alphas, they like strange things. You'll be presented to him. A gift. From me to him." Bile rose in her throat. A gift. To be used and discarded by a visiting lord. "Clean her up, Damien," Gideon ordered. "Fatten her up. I want her to look presentable. The full moon is in 3 weeks. The summit happens the week before. I will not have my gift looking like a half-drowned rat." Damien grinned. Yes, Alpha. Seraphina was dismissed. She stumbled out of the longhouse, her legs shaking. She ran to the edge of the woods behind the Omega's den and retched. A gift. She had spent her entire life being invisible, and now Gideon had finally found a use for her. She found Bethany in their shared tiny room, her cough rattling her thin frame. Seraphina quickly crushed the feverfew and mixed it with water, helping her friend drink. "Seraphina, you're shaking," Bethany whispered, her eyes wide with worry. "What did he do?" He's giving me to a visiting Alpha." Seraphina choked out the words, tasting like ash. "Lord Valerius, as a gift." Bethany's face went as pale as Seraphina's own. "Oh, goddess. No, not Valerius. He has a reputation. They say he's cruel, that he breaks his toys." Seraphina squeezed her eyes shut. She couldn't cry. Crying was a weakness Gideon loved to punish. "I have to run," Seraphina whispered, the thought solidifying in her mind. "Tonight, I have to leave." "Run where?" Bethany cried. "To be a lone wolf, you'll starve, or be torn apart by rogues before the sun sets. You're an Omega, Sarah. You don't have the strength to hunt alone." "I have to try. It's better than this." "No," Bethany said, grabbing her arm. "Not yet. It's 2 weeks away. We can think of something, a place to hide you. Something. Just don't run blind. Please." Seraphina nodded, but she knew Bethany was wrong. There was no hiding from an Alpha in his own territory. For the next 2 weeks, Seraphina lived in a waking nightmare. She was moved to a private room, given better food. The pack's healers, the ones who had ignored her for years, were ordered to tend to her to make her skin glow and her hair shine. She was being groomed for slaughter. All the while she felt a change within herself. Ever since she'd healed the black wolf, she felt different. The small spark of her magic, usually dormant and hard to summon, was now thrumming just beneath her skin. It was stronger, more vibrant. It felt like the wolf's immense power had jump-started her own. She felt the life in the trees, the water in the ground, and she was restless. Every night she found herself staring at the waxing moon, a strange primal pull in her chest. It was a longing so fierce it ached. She didn't know what it was. She just knew it was pulling her not toward the forest to escape, but toward something else. She kept smelling pine and lightning on the wind, even when she knew it was impossible. The night before the new moon, 1 week before the summit with Lord Valerius, the feeling became unbearable. It was a command, a call. She found herself walking as if in a trance toward the river, toward the willow tree. She stood at the bank where she had dragged him out. The moon was a sliver, but the stars were bright. She missed him. It was a foolish, dangerous thought. He was a rogue, a predator. He had left without a word. But she had never felt safer than when she was sleeping beside him in that cave. "Who were you?" she whispered to the rushing water. A twig snapped behind her. She spun around her heart, leaping into her throat. It wasn't Gideon. It wasn't Damien. Standing in the clearing, bathed in starlight, was a man. He was impossibly tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in black leather armor that bore no sigil she recognized. He had a chiseled, harsh face, a scar cutting through one black eyebrow. His hair was as black as a raven's wing. He was staring at her, his expression unreadable, but his presence was overwhelming. It was an aura of pure, suffocating power. The air crackled around him. He took 1 step toward her, and she smelled it. Pine, storms, and undisputed authority. Her eyes widened in terror and disbelief. It was him, the wolf. His eyes, even in the darkness, seemed to glow. They were the same intense, piercing silver. "You," he said. His voice was a deep, gravelly rumble that vibrated through her bones. He took another step. I knew I would find you. Seraphina couldn't breathe. The man, the wolf, was an alpha. Not just an alpha, but something far, far more. The power rolling off him in waves was crushing. It was the ancient, terrifying authority of a king. Every instinct, honed by years of omega submission, screamed at her to bow, to flatten herself against the earth and show her throat. But she didn't. She was paralyzed, caught between her ingrained terror and the inexplicable pull she felt toward him. Who are you?" she stammered, taking a step back, her foot sinking into the soft mud of the riverbank. "You saved my life," he stated. It wasn't a question or a thank you. It was a fact spoken with the weight of a royal decree. He continued his advance, slow and deliberate, like a predator cornering its prey. "You healed me. The silver, the poison. It was gone." I don't know what you mean," she lied, her voice shaking. I pulled you from the water. The rest, you healed on your own." He stopped tilting his head. A flash of something amusement annoyance crossed his harsh features. "Do not lie to me, little wolf. I was unconscious for 2 days, but I was not unaware. I felt it. A light. Your light. I've been searching for it for 5 years. He was close now, only a few feet away. She could see the silver scar on his brow clearly. He was devastatingly handsome in a brutal, untamed way. "I am Alaric," he said, as if that should explain everything. Seraphina's blood ran cold. Alaric, the Alpha King, the ruler of the Stonefang Dominion, the ruthless tyrant of the North. She wasn't just in the presence of an Alpha. She was in the presence of the Alpha. She finally fell her knees, hitting the ground. "Your Majesty," she whispered, her forehead touching the dirt. I didn't know. I beg your pardon." "Get up," he commanded. She scrambled to her feet, her eyes fixed on the ground. "Please," she begged, "don't tell Alpha Gideon. He'll kill me. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to heal," he finished. He reached out and with one finger tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his gaze. His silver eyes were like polished steel, dissecting her. "He does not know what you are." "I am nothing," she said, repeating the words she'd been told her entire life. "I am an albino omega, a curse." A low growl rumbled in Alaric's chest. "You are a healer, a pure light. The last one." He studied her pale features, his gaze lingering on her ice-blue eyes. "And you belong to the Blood Moon Pack, to Gideon." His voice was laced with a contempt so profound it was chilling. "Yes, Your Majesty. For now." The ambiguity of that statement terrified her. A shout echoed from the woods. "Alpha, we have a scent." Alaric didn't flinch. He just continued to look at her. A moment later, 2 massive wolves, nearly as large as Alaric's own form, burst from the trees. They shifted seamlessly into human form, dropping to one knee. They were Alaric's royal guard. "We tracked her here, my king," one of them, a man with a scarred face, said. "As I did." Alaric replied, his voice flat. He never took his eyes off Seraphina. "The Blood Moon Alpha, where is he? At the Longhouse, my king. He is preparing for the summit. He expects your cousin Lord Valerius, but not you." "A fortunate omission," Alaric murmured. "He has something that belongs to me." Seraphina's heart stopped. "Me? He's talking about me." "No," she whispered, panic rising. "Please no, you don't understand. He's giving me to Lord Valerius, as a gift. Alaric's entire demeanor changed. The air dropped 20 degrees. The overwhelming pressure of his aura intensified, and this time it wasn't just authority. It was a killing rage. What? Alaric's voice was lethally soft. To your cousin, Seraphina rushed to explain. For the summit. As entertainment. Please, I just want to leave. I was going to run tonight. Just let me go. I'll disappear. I won't tell anyone I saw you. Alaric looked at her, his face a mask of stone. You are not running. You are not his to give. And you are not disappearing. He turned to his guards. Go to the longhouse. Bring Gideon to me, now. Tell him his king is here to collect a debt. And if he resists, the guard asked. A cruel, thin smile touched Alaric's lips. Then you may remind him of his place. The guards nodded and vanished back into the shadows. What are you doing? Seraphina cried, backing away. You'll start a war. He's an alpha. You can't just... I can, Alaric interrupted. And I will. He has laid claim to something that is mine. He has offered my property to another. That is an insult I will not tolerate. Property. Seraphina's panic was replaced by a flash of her old familiar despair. I'm just trading one master for another, is that it? Because I can heal you. You healed me when I was at my weakest. Alaric said, his voice low and intense. You used your magic, a magic I thought was extinct, to save me from a poison designed by a traitor. That act created a bond, little wolf, whether you like it or not. Your fate is now tied to mine. A bond, the bond of a life debt, my life for your service. Before she could process this, howls of alarm and rage erupted from the pack compound. Shouts the sound of snapping bones, and a single deafening roar of alpha command that wasn't Gideon's. It was Alaric's guard. A few minutes later, figures emerged from the trees. The two guards were dragging a half-shifted, bleeding alpha Gideon between them. His face was battered, his arm bent at an unnatural angle. Damien and several other pack warriors were on their bellies, crawling in submission behind him. Gideon was thrown to the ground at Alaric's feet. Your Majesty! Gideon choked, spitting blood. I was not aware. We were not told. You were not told, because I did not wish you to know, Alaric said, his voice booming with the Alpha King's command. The sound forced every wolf, Seraphina included, to their knees. I came to investigate my own lands, only to be ambushed, poisoned, and left for dead on your territory. Gideon's eyes widened in genuine terror. Ambushed? On my lands, I swear, Your Majesty, I knew nothing of this. It must have been rogues. It was, Alaric said coolly, but that is not your crime. Your crime is what I found after. I lay dying by this river, and one of your pack, he gestured to Seraphina, found me. Gideon's head snapped toward Seraphina, his eyes filled with a murderous, dawning comprehension. The rogue. It was you. She saved my life, Alaric stated. She healed me. She is a pure light healer. The gasps from the Blood Moon wolves were audible. Gideon looked at Seraphina as if seeing her for the first time, not as a curse, but as a prize he had been too stupid to recognize. And you, Alaric continued, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper, were going to give her to Valerius like a common bed slave, a toy. My king, I didn't know, Gideon pleaded, prostrating himself. She is an Omega, a ghost. I didn't know what she was. It was a mistake. A fatal one, Alaric said. You have proven yourself unfit to rule. You possess a treasure, and you try to barter it for scraps. You are weak, Gideon, and I do not tolerate weakness in my alphas. Please, my king, mercy. Mercy. Alaric stepped forward and placed his boot on the back of Gideon's head, forcing his face into the mud. She is the only reason you are still breathing. She saved my life, and in doing so, she has inadvertently saved yours. I will not kill the Alpha of the Omega who saved me. It would be impolite. Alaric pressed down, and a sickening crackle came from Gideon's neck. The Alpha screamed. But I am stripping you of your rank. Damien is your Alpha now. You will be his Omega. You will know her life. Damien looked up, stunned. Then a slow, predatory grin spread on his face. Gideon was sobbing a broken sound. Alaric removed his boot and turned to Seraphina. She was shaking her mind, reeling. He held out his hand. The debt is called Healer. You will come with me. Seraphina stared at his outstretched hand. It was a large, calloused hand, scarred from 1,000 battles. It was the hand of a king, a warrior, a killer. And it was the same hand that in wolf form had been limp and cold as she dragged him from the river. Come with you, she whispered. It is not a request. She looked back at the Blood Moon pack. Gideon was a whimpering, broken mess in the mud. Damien was already standing taller, his chest puffed out, staring at Gideon with hungry, vindictive eyes. The other wolves looked at her with a new, terrifying mix of awe and fear. She was no longer Seraphina the outcast. She was the thing the Alpha King had come for. She had no home here. She had never had one. But the thought of going with this ruthless, powerful man to a fortress of shadows was just as terrifying. Where? She asked, her voice small. To the Stonefang Citadel. My home. You will be under my protection. As your property, she challenged, finding a tiny spark of defiance. Alaric's silver eyes narrowed. The air thickened. As my healer, you saved my life. You will continue to do so. That is the bond. That is the claim. He didn't say mate. He didn't say guest. He said healer. She was a tool. A valuable, rare tool he had just retrieved from a fool who didn't know its worth. She had traded Gideon's cage for a stronger, colder, and a larger one. I have no choice, she stated. It wasn't a question. No. He agreed, his hand still outstretched. You do not. Slowly, her limbs feeling heavy, Seraphina placed her trembling, pale hand into his. His grip was instant and ironclad. He pulled her to her feet, his touch sending a jolt through her, not of magic, but of pure, dominant energy. It was a shock, a brand. He tugged her to his side, his arm possessively settling around her waist. It was a clear, unmistakable signal to everyone present. This is mine. My king, Damien said, bowing low. Your cousin Lord Valerius is still set to arrive in 1 week. Alaric's face darkened. He will be disappointed. Tell him the gift he was promised has been recalled. By me. Tell him I have returned to the citadel, and I expect him to follow. We have much to discuss. Yes, your majesty. Alaric didn't spare Gideon another glance. He turned, pulling Seraphina with him, and began to walk into the woods. His 2 guards in wolf form flanked them instantly. Wait! A small voice cried. Seraphina turned. Bethany was stumbling forward, her face streaked with tears. She fell to her knees before Alaric. Please, your majesty, Bethany begged. Don't hurt her. She's good. She's the only one who was ever kind to me. Seraphina's heart broke. She tried to pull away from Alaric, but his grip was like steel. Bethany, it's okay. Go back. Please, Bethany sobbed, looking at Alaric. Alaric looked down at the weeping Omega, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he looked at Seraphina. She is your friend. Seraphina nodded, tears welling in her own eyes. She's all I have. Alaric sighed, an impatient, frustrated sound. The citadel is no place for a weak wolf. It is harsh. It is cold. She will not survive. She will if I am there, Seraphina said, her voice finding a strength she didn't know it possessed. If you are claiming me, then you claim my pack. She comes, The guards tensed. Challenging the Alpha King was suicide. Alaric stared at her, his silver eyes searching her face. He was looking for weakness, for a bluff. He found none. He saw only a desperate, stubborn loyalty. A muscle worked in his jaw. "You are in no position to make demands, healer." "Then I will not go," Seraphina said, planting her feet. "I will not heal you. I'll let the rest of the poison take you. I'll die right here, but I will not leave her." It was a gamble, a terrifying, insane gamble. The silence that followed was so complete that the sound of the river seemed to vanish. The king's aura flared, a crushing weight of fury. He was deciding whether to kill her or to grant her demand. Finally, he let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "You have the courage of a warrior little ghost, if not the sense." "Very well." He nodded to one of his guards. "She comes." He looked back at Seraphina, his eyes glittering with a new dangerous light. "But know this. Her life is now your responsibility. Her weakness is your failure. You will both answer to me." He didn't wait for a reply. He tugged her forward, and this time she followed. Bethany, scooped up by one of the guards, was carried behind them. They walked for hours, moving at a relentless pace. Seraphina, weak from years of meager omega rations, struggled to keep up. Just as her legs were about to give out, Alaric stopped. "Shift!" he commanded. Seraphina hesitated. She hated her wolf form. It was a symbol of her shame. "I will not carry you," he said, his voice hard. She stripped off her tunic and shifted. Her bones cracked and reformed a familiar minor pain. In seconds, her pale white wolf stood on the forest floor, small and trembling, blinking its ice-blue eyes up at the towering Alpha. Alaric watched her, his expression unreadable. He then shifted himself. It was like watching a mountain erupt. He didn't just change, he exploded into his form. The black wolf from the river was before her, his head level with her human one. He was magnificent and terrifying. His silver eyes in this form were even more piercing. He nudged her a surprisingly gentle for him push with his massive head. "Run." The command was unspoken. An Alpha's will pressed directly into her mind, and they ran. They ran with a speed she had never known. They weren't just running. They were flowing through the forest, a black shadow and a white ghost, with two other large wolves following. They ran for a full day and a full night, stopping only for water. Alaric's stamina was endless. Seraphina ran until her paws were bleeding and her lungs burned, but she refused to stop. She would not show him any more weakness. They arrived at the Stonefang citadel at dawn on the third day. It was not a castle, it was a scar on the land. Carved from the black rock of a mountain, it was a fortress of jagged towers and deep shadows looming over a vast grey valley. The very air around it felt heavy and cold. As they approached, Seraphina saw why. The land was sick. The trees were black and leafless, though it was only autumn. The grass was a sickly, greyish yellow. The wolves they passed, guards patrolling the perimeter, looked gaunt, their fur dull, their eyes haunted. A blight. A curse. Alaric shifted back to his human form at the gates, and Seraphina and the others followed. The guards bowed their faces, etched with relief at his return. "My king," one captain said, rushing forward, "the blight. It has spread to the lower valley. The water is tainted." "I am aware," Alaric bit out, striding through the gates. "It ends. I have found the cure." He grabbed Seraphina's arm, pulling her into the main hall. All eyes turned to her. Hundreds of wolves in a hall that could have held thousands stared. They saw their king returned from the dead, dragging a pale, terrified Omega behind him. "This," Alaric announced, his voice echoing off the cold stone, "is Seraphina. She is a pure light healer. She is my personal healer under my exclusive protection. Anyone who touches her, anyone who speaks to her, anyone who even looks at her without my permission will answer to me. Am I understood?" A yes, Alpha King, thundered through the hall. He didn't wait. He dragged her up winding stone stairs through dark corridors until he reached a massive set of iron-bound doors. He threw them open. It was a vast chamber dominated by a massive unlit fireplace and a bed that looked large enough for a giant. "You will stay here," he commanded. "Bethany will be given a room in the servants' quarter. You will not leave this room without my permission. Food will be brought to you. Tomorrow the healing begins." "The healing?" Seraphina asked, rubbing her arm where his fingers had bruised her. I already healed you." Alaric turned his face a mask of grim exhaustion. He tore his black tunic open. Seraphina gasped. The wound she had healed, the large gash on his side, was back. It wasn't a fresh wound, but a sickly blackish-purple scar that seemed to be weeping a dark, oily substance. The skin around it was dead and grey. "What? How?" she stammered. "I healed you. I know I did." "You healed the wound," he said, his voice tight with a pain he refused to show. "You did not heal the poison. It is not simple wolfsbane. It was a curse, a blight tied to a traitor's magic and laced with silver. It is killing me, Seraphina, slowly, and as I am tied to my land, it is killing my kingdom." He walked to a window and looked out at the dying valley. "You healed the gash," he repeated, "but the poison remains rooted in my blood. Every day I grow weaker, and every day the land dies a little more. Your light. It's the only thing that's ever pushed it back. Even that night in the cave, I felt it recede." He turned back to her, his silver eyes burning with a desperate, terrifying intensity. "You didn't just save me from a wound, healer. You are my only hope for survival. My kingdom's only hope." He took a deep breath. "The full moon is in 2 weeks. That is when the poison is at its strongest. That is when it will try to kill me for good. You have until then to purge it from my body. Entirely." I don't know if I can," she whispered, horrified by the scale of it. "That night, it took everything I had." He crossed the room in 2 strides, his hands gripping her shoulders. His power was overwhelming, but his eyes were pleading, though his voice was a command. "You will. You will try every day until it is done, or you will die with me, and all of Stonefang will die around us." The healing began that evening. Alaric, it seemed, was not willing to waste a single moment. Seraphina was brought a tray of food, rich stew, fresh bread and cheese. It was more than she had eaten in a month. She ate quickly, mechanically, her mind reeling. Bethany was brought to her, her eyes wide with terror, but unharmed. "They gave me a room," Bethany whispered, huddling in the massive chamber. "It's small, but it's clean. They gave me a blanket." "Sarah, what is this place?" "A bigger cage." "Beth," Seraphina said, her voice hollow, "but I have to do this. I have to heal him." "Be careful," Bethany warned, her voice low. "The wolves here, they look at you like you're a religious artifact, but they also look at you like they're starving. They're desperate, and desperation makes wolves cruel." She was right. Alaric returned as the sun was setting, casting long grey shadows across the room. He was stripped to the waist. The dark, weeping blight scar on his side seemed to pulse with a faint malevolent energy. He sat on a stone bench, his face rigid. "Begin," he ordered. Seraphina approached him, her hands trembling. This was different from the cave. Then he had been unconscious a beast. Now he was a man, a king, and he was watching her with an unnerving intensity. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and reached for her inner light. It was there, stronger than before, thrumming, waiting. She placed her hands on the poisoned scar. Alaric hissed, his entire body going rigid. The contact was excruciating for them both. For her, it was like touching dry ice and fire at the same time, a searing, venomous cold that tried to creep up her arms. For him, she could feel his muscles clenching in agony. Her light was fighting the darkness, and the battlefield was his body. "Hold on," he ground out through clenched teeth. She pushed her light into him, visualizing it as a pure silver river washing away a black, oily tide. The dark poison resisted. It was intelligent. It was magic. It fought her, lashing back, sending tendrils of icy pain into her palms. She cried out, but she didn't let go. She could feel Alaric's pain, his strength, and underneath it all, a deep-seated rage at his own vulnerability. After what felt like an hour, she collapsed, her energy spent. She fell to her knees, panting. Alaric was breathing heavily, sweat covering his brow, but he looked better. The greyish tinge to his skin had receded, and the black scar, while still present, looked less inflamed. It's working," she whispered, amazed. "Again," he commanded, his voice strained. "I can't," she gasped. I have no more." He looked at her, his silver eyes sharp. He saw the truth of her words. "Then rest, eat. You will regain your strength. We go again at midnight, and again at dawn. As many times as you can bear. We have 2 weeks." And so the pattern was set. For 10 days, Serafina lived in that room, a prisoner savior. 4, 5, sometimes 6 times a day, she would be summoned to heal him. She would pour her light into him until she was a hollow, shaking husk. Then she would be ordered to eat and sleep. She saw no one but Alaric and Bethany, who brought her meals, her face growing more worried by the day. The process was intimate, in a strange, non-physical way. She was quite literally inside his soul, fighting the darkness that gripped him. She felt his memories. She saw the ambush, a dozen wolves, all wearing the stone fang sigil, a betrayal. She saw his cousin Valerius, standing on a ridge watching his face, impassive. She saw the silver-laced dagger plunged into his side, not by a stranger, but by his own beta, a man he had trusted. She felt his roar of betrayal, his desperate flight, his collapse by the river. And he in turn felt her. He felt her years of abuse, the sting of Damien's hand, the cold hunger of the Omega's den, the bone-deep loneliness of being the outcast. They never spoke of it. But the air between them changed. The hard, ruthless lines of Alaric's face began to soften when he looked at her. He stopped ordering her to heal and began asking. He would bring her food himself, watching her eat with a fierce, protective gaze. One evening, after a particularly brutal session that left them both shaking, he didn't leave. He sat on the bench watching her as she huddled by the fire, trying to regain her warmth. "Why?" he asked, his voice quiet. "Why did you save me at the river? You didn't know who I was. I was a rogue, an enemy. You should have let me die." Serafina looked into the flames. "I don't know. You looked alone, and I know what that feels like." He was silent for a long time. "No one has ever," he paused, searching for the word, "been kind to me. Not without wanting something. My power, my title. I didn't want anything," she whispered. I couldn't watch you die." He stood and walked to her. He knelt in front of her, a king on his knees before an Omega. He took her hands, the hands that healed him, and examined them. They were pale, slender, and calloused from her old life. "They see you as weak," he murmured, his voice rough. "Your old pack, even my pack, they see a small white wolf. They are fools. You have a strength I have never known, a strength that does not break but mends. My entire kingdom is built on power and fear, on breaking things." He looked up, his silver eyes meeting hers. The raw intensity was still there, but it was no longer just desperation. It was awe, and something deeper, something possessive. "When this is over," he said, "they will not see you as my healer. They will see you as my queen." Seraphina's breath hitched. "Queen, not you are my fated one," he said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "I knew it the moment I woke in that cave and saw you. Your light called to my shadow. But I could not. I could not claim you as a mate while this poison ruins me. I could not bind you to a dying king. I claimed you as a healer because I needed you, but I want you as my mate." Before she could respond, the chamber doors burst open. A tall, handsome wolf with charming blue eyes and dark, wavy hair stood in the doorway, a perfectly tailored suit on his broad shoulders. He was flanked by his own guards. He smiled a wide, easy smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Alaric, cousin," he exclaimed, striding into the room. "I arrive at the citadel to find you've returned from your hunting trip, and the entire fortress is buzzing with rumors of a miracle-working Omega." He stopped, his gaze falling on Seraphina, who was still kneeling by the fire, her hands still held by the king. His smile widened, but his blue eyes went cold as ice. "Ah," he said, his voice dripping with false charm. "So this is the gift you recalled." "I am Lord Valerius. And you. You must be the healer." Alaric shielded Seraphina as Lord Valerius entered his charm, failing to hide his cold assessment. "So this is the miracle healer," Valerius sneered, noting the blight on Alaric was fainter. He taunted Alaric, reminding him the full moon was tonight, when the poison would be at its peak. After Alaric dismissed him, Seraphina confirmed Valerius was the traitor from his memories. Alaric set guards, knowing Valerius would now try to kill Seraphina. But the attack came from within. Bethany burst in through a secret passage, revealing Valerius had not only tried to bribe her into poisoning Seraphina, but he had also allied with Gideon. As she spoke, an attack horn sounded. Gideon was attacking the south wall as a distraction. Alaric understood the pincer move, just as the rising moon amplified the poison, crippling him. The chamber doors burst open, revealing Valerius and his personal guard. "I thought the great Alpha King would at least die on his feet." Valerius mocked, his eyes landing on Seraphina. "Now once he's dead, I'll find a much better use for you." "You traitor!" Alaric snarled, rising unsteadily as Valerius ordered his guards to attack. Just as they advanced, Gideon burst in, howling. "The Omega is mine!" He lunged, but Seraphina, filled with a cold rage, didn't run. She unleashed a blinding blast of white-hot light, an unmaking power that struck Gideon, purifying the madness from him. Valerius, seeing her new power, shrieked, "Kill the king now!" As his guards lunged at the weakened Alaric, Seraphina threw herself in front of him, taking 2 swords in the back. "No!" Alaric roared. But as the steel hit, Seraphina wrapped her arms around Alaric, her hands on his scar. She didn't heal. She pulled. She ripped the blight from his body into her own, her light consuming the darkness. Freed from the poison, the full moon's power surged into Alaric. He was healed. He caught Seraphina as she fell then, in a terrifying rage. He slaughtered the guards and threw Valerius from the window. He rushed back to Seraphina, begging her to live. Her mortal wounds were already closing. Her magic, supercharged by the poison, was healing her. Her eyes fluttered open. "You are loud," she whispered. "You are my life, Alaric breathed, clutching his mate, as outside the valley's dead grass began to turn green. The story of that night echoed through the continents. The tale of the albino Omega, the pale ghost who had faced down 2 alphas, purified a traitor's poison, and single-handedly saved the Stone-Fang Dominion. She was no longer Seraphina the outcast. She was Seraphina the blight purifier, the moon-blessed queen. Alaric, true to his word, mated her under the next full moon, his claim a roar of pride that shook the mountains. She didn't just rule beside him. She ruled with him. Her light and his shadow, her power to mend and his power to protect. Together they rebuilt the North, not with fear, but with a new, stronger, and more just power with Bethany as the head of their new, compassionate household. They had both been broken alone by a river of despair. But by the light of the full moon, they found in each other the one thing neither had ever had, a true, fated, and unconquerable mate. Thank you for listening to this incredible story. What did you think of Seraphina's transformation? Could you believe the betrayal of Lord Valerius? Let me know your favorite part in the comments below. If you loved this journey of a hidden power and a fated love, please show your support by hitting that like button, sharing this video with a friend who loves werewolf romance, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more epic stories just like this one. Click that bell so you never miss an update.